is not a neutral country, so to speak, but rather an ally that we value, that we support. Moreover, because this country has gone through difficult times a decade ago with a crisis that could have been vital regarding the survival possibilities of the country. And thanks to the courage of Argentinians, the country has overcome the difficulties and found a road ahead. 10 years ago, the G20 met for the first time in Washington. And in those days, we were thinking mostly about European American countries to arrive at consensus-based decisions about the crisis that had placed Europe in one of the most severe crises after the war. In those days, we asked ourselves whether Europe would also be able to overcome the challenges it faced. And we are in a position to assert that Europe has achieved such a goal. It has renewed its commitment with growth in three consecutive quarters. Such growth is being made extensive to all member states of the European Union. In Europe, we have 15 sources of new employment, while in 2013, 239 employment positions had been lost, and today they have been left to the Europeans. These are the highest employment rates in Europe, and we celebrate the fact that unemployment continues in a downward trend. We also celebrate the fact that the young are being incorporated into the labor force at tolerable levels, but also comparable to those levels that we had reached before the crisis. We have succeeded in curbing the lack of investment, and this marked the beginning of the mandate of the Commission with 360 billion worth of additional investment in the M plan that carried my name at that time. This was enabled by a virtuous triangle between budget, funds, and relaunching of investment. This was possible because the previous market, although it was incomplete, is working appropriately, and because the euro is the second currency worldwide and in a monetary and economic sphere overall has supported our efforts.
And this is the principle that no one country, no one region can go it alone. We are, and we will do it during these G20 meetings, of the opinion that there is no alternative to multilateral cooperation. Putting into place this multilateral mechanism, having in mind that no one can do it by its own means, was in fact the basic reason which led to the putting into place of the G20. Multilateralism was why G20 was made for. And this case for multilateralism and working together has never been stronger than it is today. We, as Europeans, do believe in an open and fair economy. That means trade. Trade with the rest of the world is more important than ever for Europe, supporting 36 million jobs across Europe, two-thirds more than in 2000. European exports support almost 20 million jobs outside the European Union, including 1 million of jobs in the United States alone. We have launched months ago a new alliance for sustainable investment and jobs with Africa to help boost trade between our two continents and create up to 10 million jobs in Africa in the next 5 years. Don't underestimate the dimension of our neighborhood with Africa. Africa is becoming more and more important and will be always on the side of our African friends. Of course, we have to develop the rules we have adopted years ago. We are on our way to reform the World Trade Organization. We are doing this in close cooperation with the United States of America. When it comes to climate change, we'll repeat, President Tusk and myself, our commitment to stick to the agreement we have concluded years ago in Paris. So thank you to the Argentinian government and its president. We had a meeting with yesterday morning for the way they are organizing in the best conditions possible this two-day meeting. Thank you.
President Tusk.
Thank you. Let me just add a few words to what President Juncker has said. As this is a difficult moment for international cooperation, I would like to appeal to the leaders to use this summit, including the bilateral and informal exchanges, to seriously discuss real issues such as trade wars, the tragic situation in Syria and Yemen, and the Russian aggression in Ukraine. I see no reason why the G20 leaders shouldn't have a meaningful discussion about solving these problems, especially because all the instruments lie in their hands. The only condition is goodwill. We also cannot underestimate other issues which remain difficult for some leaders, such as human rights, freedom of press, and basic safety of journalists. It is our obligation as the EU to take this opportunity and press our partners to respect these basic principles. Many leaders will certainly have questions about Brexit. Therefore, let me say this. The European Union has just agreed an orderly divorce with the United Kingdom. A few days before the vote in the House of Commons, it is becoming more and more clear that this deal is the best possible. In fact, the only possible one. If this deal is rejected in the Commons, we are left with, as was already stressed a few weeks ago by Prime Minister May, an alternative. No deal or no Brexit at all. I want to reassure you that the EU is prepared for every scenario. Thank you.
We can now switch to your questions. Je vais commencer avec Jurek Kuszkiewicz. Jurek.
Jurek Kuszkiewicz from the newspaper Le Soir. Question to President Juncker regarding the EU-US discussions on trade and the non-imposition so far of tariffs on cars. Do you expect to have direct talks with President Trump? And don't you fear that? Don't you fear a turn in the events in this issue? Particularly since the announcement of General Motors to close plants in the US. And since I'm asking you about this, a secondary question, since you had this very successful meeting in July with President Trump, successful because results are lasting till today, which is quite a success with this president. Would you have an advice to him and to President Xi for the over-important meeting tomorrow? Thank you.
Yes, I had a short meeting, exchange of views with US President the other day on the 11th of November in Paris. I have noted with, not happiness, but with a certain degree of satisfaction that nothing has changed between the US and the European Union since our last meeting by the end of July in Washington. We'll find in the course of today and in the margins of the meeting an opportunity to reconfirm this mutual commitment that we have concluded back in July. and we are discussing these issues with our American friends, like a European Union, which is a strong one, which is the biggest internal market of the world. And I have good news for the American president, because according to our commitments back in July, the export from liquefied natural gas from the US into the European Union has increased by 52%, and the imports on the European side of soybeans by 100%, which is clearly showing that we are sticking to our commitments. Am I the one who could give advice to the US president and to the Chinese president? Yes, but I will do it when discussing with them.
Okay, then I had the German press agency. Yes, go ahead.
Ansgar Hase from the German press agency DPA. The European Union announced that it will act appropriately to the use of force by Russia in the Sea of Azov. What does it mean, an appropriate reaction? Is it possible to have an appropriate reaction without new sanctions if there's no de-escalation in the next weeks?
The de-escalation in the Sea of Azov is a cause of grave concern to us. And of course, Russia's use of force against Ukrainian ships is totally unacceptable. Europe, this is what I would like to underline, that Europe is united in its support to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this is why I am sure that the EU will roll over the sanctions against Russia in December.
Yes, next question. I had Giovanna Boscheri.
Giovanna Pancaresca, Italia. Question for President Juncker. In these days, you also continue the negotiation on an Italian budget. You are going to meet Prime Minister Conte today. Just wanted to know do you think there is still the possibility to avoid the excessive deficit procedure, of course, debt-based excessive deficit procedure, and in this behalf, what kind of effort do you think is necessary from the Italian side? An important cut on the deficit, and when I say important, more than 0.2, what are you expecting?
I will have a meeting with Giuseppe Conte in the course of the day or tomorrow. I don't know exactly when it will happen. I had a constructive meeting with the Italian Prime Minister last Saturday in Brussels. We made some progress. We are not at war with Italy. I want Italy to be the Italy always was, inspiring Europe, not turning its back to Europe. The atmosphere is good. We are making progress, and we should not dramatize this issue. We are with Italy if Italy is with us.
This concludes our press conference. Thank you very much.